Hello, my name is Andrew Bellows and I'm a pastor, and I'm going to be showing you today the PreSonus StudioLive 24R rack mount mixer. So if we come over here to products on the PreSonus website and go to the StudioLive Series 3 rack mixers, you're going to see three different mixers, all of which are 32 channel mixers, but one of which comes with 32 inputs, one with 24 inputs, and one with 16 inputs. You can add additional inputs onto these devices. If you come over here to the networked stage boxes, you can see that there are two options, the NSB 16.8 and the NSB 8.8. And this will add 16 inputs and 8 outputs. This will add 8 inputs and 8 outputs. And so even though the mixers themselves have a limited number of inputs, 32, 24, or 16, all of them, the 24R and the 16R, can be expanded to have more inputs and outputs. So this allows you to, over network cable, put in more inputs. So you can see here down at the bottom, I've got images of the front and back of the 24R, which is the device that I'm currently using. And on the front, you can see that there are inputs that are XLR or quarter inch. So you can go into each of these 24 inputs either with a XLR, which is a microphone cable, a balanced quarter inch input, which is the same thing as a microphone cable in a different format, or with a unbalanced quarter inch input, which is the same as a cable you would use for a guitar. Also on the front is a quarter inch stereo unbalanced input so that you can plug in a headset, and then a dial to control the amount of audio going to that headset. Then there's an SD card slot with 4 lights to indicate the status of the device. On the back of the device, you've got the on-off switch and the power plug. Then you've got USB to connect to a single computer for both transferring audio to a DAW. You've got a control network jack, RJ45 plug, that allows you to connect either to a single computer or over a network to a number of computers and devices. If you plug it into a wireless router, you can have multiple computers, tablets, smartphones, all connected to this device at the same time, and all controlling them through this RJ45 connection. Then you've got network audio, which allows you to connect to stage boxes and other AVB devices, such as the NSB 16.8 or the NSB 8.8 from PreSonus. Over here, we've got our mix outputs. And so these are 12 quarter-inch balanced outputs that allow you to send different audio streams out of the device. And then our main left and right output, which come out as XLR, and then 2 extra inputs which are compatible with home stereo equipment if you want to run in from a DVD player or something like that that has RCA jacks. You've got the appropriate type of jack for that right here. So that's a look at the physical device, but you'll notice that on this device, because it's a rack mount mixer, there's no sliders, there's no dials, there's no knobs, nothing that you could use to raise or lower the volume or adjust the EQ or anything like that. Instead of using dials and faders on the actual device, this device connects either through USB or RJ45 to a computer. And so you can see here the software program that is controlling this physical device. And so currently I am plugged in to channel 1. You can't see it, it's off the screen here, but you can see the green line here indicating that the AT4040 microphone that I've got plugged in is producing signal. And then over here on the main, you can see that I'm also getting audio here, which means that you're able to hear it because the audio has been successfully ported over to the main bus. It's possible to select a particular channel and then adjust the audio for that channel. So if I click here on channel 2, which is the wireless headset microphone, you'll notice that it becomes a lighter color and the pulpit mic goes back to regular, and I can select all the way along, and each of these different channels into which I would normally have things plugged if I were not here at my home instead of at the church. Each of those would be selected in turn. And so you can see up here in the input section, as I move through these various channels, the settings for each of these change. So whether it's phantom power or not is selected by the 48 volt. The polarity can be flipped and the channels can be linked together. So for example, our digital piano has stereo outs. And so when I select this channel, you can see down here that both channels 7 and 8 are selected, represented by a single fader. But the stereo pan here looks different because this is a stereo channel, as is the electric guitar. And so up here in digital piano, I can select either the left or the right channel and change those individually, but I've got them linked in such a way that those will be together. So here I can adjust the preamp for this device and raise or lower the amount of gain that is applied to the channel. I can also adjust my high-pass filter. I can select whether this particular channel is being sent to the main bus and whether it goes to A, B, C, or D of the sub-channels. I can also set a bit of a delay so that if the speaker that is being used in this particular instance is in a different location and we want the audio to match the natural sound from the main speakers with the sound coming out of another set of speakers, we can adjust the delay so that those two sets of speakers at a distance from one another will be synchronized with one another. So this is the input area. I can rename the channel to be whatever I want. So I can say digital piano 2, and then once I set that here, wherever this channel is, anywhere in the settings for this channel, you're going to see that changed universally. So this is common regardless of where I am on the mixer, and that's going to make sense a little bit later on. So it matters which channel I have selected, what I'm adjusting here. So the same controls in the input area can be applied to any of the different channels. So it's like in Microsoft Windows, where you've got the taskbar at the bottom, and you've got Microsoft Word, and you've got Microsoft PowerPoint, and you've got Microsoft Excel. If I am going to use my keyboard to type, it matters whether I have selected Microsoft Word or Microsoft PowerPoint. If I'm intending to enter text into Microsoft PowerPoint, but I have Microsoft Word selected, then when I start to type, Word will receive the text, not Microsoft PowerPoint. So down here, I need to make sure that I've got the right thing selected before I start using these controls to make changes. So if I intend to make changes to the pulpit mic, but I have the headset mic selected, then if I turn on phantom power, that may have deleterious consequences for my wireless setup. Now, phantom power shouldn't affect a modern headset system that way, but if it was a ribbon mic or something that was highly specialized, there are certain microphones that can be damaged by 48 volts running through them, and so we want to be very careful that we are selecting the right thing before we make changes. In the same way, over here we've got what is called the fat channel. And so this is 4 different effects that can be applied to every channel. So on the pulpit mic, I've got a gate, a compressor, an equalizer, and a limiter. And so we're going to be going into what each of those means in another video later on. But again, it matters which channel I have selected. You'll see that all of the controls in the fat channel shift significantly when I move from one channel to the other. So all this information up here, the input area and the fat channel, all of those are very dependent upon which channel you have selected. There's one set of controls that can be applied to any channel because this is a digital mixer, And that's the power of a digital mixer. You don't have to have a large device that's 6 feet wide and 3 feet tall to be able to have all of the dials and sliders that you would need to make all those sorts of changes. On a standard analog, if you wanted a gate and a compressor and an equalizer and a limiter on every single channel, well, you'd need all of these controls duplicated over 8 or 16 or 24 or 32 or however many channels you want to put in place. And all of those physical devices and all of the soldering to put them in place and have them wired together properly, well, that's expensive to have an engineer do all of that. But the advantage of a digital device is that the same controls on a computer can operate the device not just on one computer, but on 2 or 3 or 4 different computers, plus someone's smartphone, plus a tablet or two. And so you can have multiple people adjusting the sound all at the same time. And you can have the people who are on stage adjusting the sound for their own monitors themselves, either wedges or in-ear monitors, so that they don't have to call up to the back and say to the sound person, stop paying attention to the sound that's coming out to the people who are listening, and instead focus on the sound that I need to hear in the stage. A little more of this, a little less of that, not quite, almost there. That process can be frustrating, and the communication that needs to go back and forth between the person on the stage listening to the monitor and not having the ability to adjust their own mix on the stage, all of that is fixed now because, with a digital mixer, the person who is adjusting the sound for the people listening in the audience or the congregation, they can focus on that, while the person on stage can simply pull out their phone and make an adjustment to what they're hearing either in their in-ear monitors or to the stage wedges. And they don't have to get the sound person's attention, have the sound person make that adjustment for them by yelling back and forth or speaking through the microphone to get somebody's attention, and they can just do that themselves, which is a wonderful thing. So over here, we have a panel that is the mix selection panel. Now, we said that on the back of the device, there are these 12 quarter-inch jack outputs. And so those are represented here. So output number 1, if I click on it, represents the sound coming out of this quarter-inch output. And so I've got 6 different outputs that represent those first 6 XLR jacks, or sorry, not XLR, quarter-inch jacks. Then I've got an additional 3, which are stereo linked, which represent the pairs of the remaining 6 jacks. So this is the guitar in-ear monitors, this is the drum in-ear monitors, and this is the piano in-ear monitors. So my 12 outputs, there are 6 monos and 3 stereos taking up all 12 of these outputs. And so when I select main, you see that the faders are white or light gray. Whereas if I select mix output 1, the audio coming out of this quarter-inch jack, you will now notice that all of my faders are yellow. And so you can see that there is some of this and some of this, and all the rest of it is muted coming out of that 1/8-inch jack. Now, because we have an existing soundboard that our sound techs are comfortable with, what we've done here is we are sending audio out of these quarter-inch inputs, converting it to XLR, and plugging it into the normal XLR jacks that we have on our chancel that go to the back. We have an older soundboard that has 8 whole channels on it. That obviously is insufficient for a modern situation, but we are using the PreSonus StudioLive 24R rack mixer as a stage box. We are gathering together 2 or 3 or 4 channels, and we are summing them down to a single output so that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are sent back up to our existing soundboard. And so at the soundboard, our sound techs have these 6 faders that they can use to control the main sound coming into our sanctuary. And then we've got an additional 3 stereo outputs that go to our in-ear monitors, and so that people can hear exactly what they want. So if I click on guitar monitor, this is the sound that comes to my headset. And so I don't want any of my voice. I don't want any of my guitar. What I want to hear is the grand piano and the digital piano and the drums. I recently changed what that was, so that was the wrong fader that was up. So the electronic drum kit and the grand piano are the 2 things that I want to hear coming in to mine. And if I've got some singers with me, then I want to hear some of their vocals. I don't want to hear what I sound like. I want to hear what the rest of them sound like, unless I'm playing electric guitar, in which case I'm going to want some of my electric guitar sound. But even with the in-ear monitors in, I can hear my acoustic guitar just fine. And I know how to sing without hearing myself, just understanding the sound in my own head when I sing. So I don't need any of me unless I'm playing electric guitar or bass. But if I'm just playing acoustic guitar, I don't want any of that in my monitor. If we go to the drum monitor, well, there's a completely different mix. He wants to hear the acoustic guitar. He wants to hear lots of the drums because they're electronic drums, and if it's not coming through the monitor, he can't hear it. He also wants to hear some piano, and he wants to hear my lead vocals, which come through the wireless headset. So in this way, each of the people who have in-ear monitors can have a custom mix that is controlled by their mobile phone. And there is an application called QMix, which allows you to control that. So let's take a look at the various software packages. If we come over here to software, we can see that there is control software. And as soon as the web page refreshes here, you can see UC Surface. And this is the piece of software that we've been seeing so far. And there is also QMix, which is specifically designed for mobile phones. Now, UC Surface is available for a computer, whether PC or Mac. It's also available for Android and iPhone devices, whether a tablet or a phone. One of the difficulties with it, though, is that you can't resize it. So the image that is meant to be seen on a 24-inch monitor, when it appears on a smartphone, is way too small. Now, there are a limited number of instances where you might want to do that, but for the most part, if you're going to see it on a phone, you need the QMix app, because it very much simplifies what it looks like to run the device. And so you've got just this one wheel on the main screen that is going to allow you simple control over the balance between your individual channels, whether guitar or vocals or what have you, and the rest of the band. And so this one dial, if you turn it up and down, adjusts the balance between my stuff and everyone else's stuff. So it's a very simplified interface that allows you control over all of the auxiliary channels, or just isolates you to one single auxiliary channel that is your auxiliary channel, either mono or stereo. So this is the software that you would use to control the device, and it can be downloaded quickly and easily, and then you can control which devices have control over your mixer. So this is the selection panel that allows you to control what gets selected. And so we've got our mains, we've got our 4 effects sends. So if I want to send some of this to one of my effects channels, I can come up here to effects, and I've got effects A, B, C, and D, each of which is set to a different type of effect. And I can select which type of effect I want on each of these 4, and then I can send for each channel how much of that individual channel I want to send to the effect, and then I can control with the master fader how much of that effect is appearing. So you can hear this is a vintage plate reverb, and if I draw this down, it's going to be just a little bit of that effect. If I turn it up, it's going to be a lot of that effect. And so we want to make sure you may not be able to hear that because of the way that I've got this set up in the software I'm using to record, but I can hear a whole lot of effect in my headphones when I turn that up. And so we can look at each of the different ones here. And one of the things you need to know about this particular software is that to turn something off that you've already selected, you want to hit the same button again. So turn effects on, you hit the button. Turn effects off, you hit the same button. Same with the GEQ. So this is the graphic equalizer. And so I'm going to assign that. Okay, so now we've got our graphic EQ. And so I can turn this on for my main outputs and turn on my real-time analyzer that I can see in either pre or post. So the signal coming into the graphic equalizer or the signal going out of the graphic equalizer. And then I can hit draw, and then I can just go over each of these channels or reset it. If I've got draw turned off, it's going to allow me to do one at a time and only one, wherever I have my thing here. But if I turn on draw, then I can just sweep across a whole series of EQ settings and draw the shape that I want. Then if I come into assign, it's going to allow me to select which of my main, left, right, subs, and mixes I want my 8 graphic EQs assigned to. And so if I turn off main, left, and right, that was the reason why when I went into a GEQ there was nothing here, because I hadn't assigned that to the main, left, right bus. And so if I say I want it on sub A and sub B, mix 1 and mix 2, therefore I've assigned 6 out of my 8 GEQs. And so in order to get to that, if I'm on main and hit GEQ and don't have assign selected, it's going to show me the GEQ for my mains. And I can turn those on and off, and it says main right here. Now, if I select mix 1 and then hit GEQ, it shows me one pastor GEQ, which is this mix. So now I can turn that on or off. I can draw it however I like. And then if I go back to main, the EQ settings are different. So if I select pastor, or I select main, or I select sub A or sub B, it's going to show me the GEQ for what I've got selected down here. And so again, I hit the same button to turn it off. But just so I don't mess myself up, I'm going to come and reset all of those so that I am not surprised later on when I find that that has been altered. There we go. So I'm going to turn that off again. Now, you'll see around here a number of gear icons. So this gear icon brings you into the settings for an individual channel. So right now I'm on the pulpit channel, and I can change the color of that channel by selecting here. Hopefully I remember the right color to go back to. Nope, that is not the right one. This is the right one. Yes, okay. And I can change the type of channel. Let's say that I've got a tuba or a trumpet or a brass section instrument. By hitting one of these, I can set the defaults. So this is going to be vocals, and so under vocals I've got backup vocals, choir, crowd ambient, lead vocals, or speech. And speech is what I've got selected because that is the type of channel that this is. And so I'm going to say under vocals that this is a vocal cue or speech. And you can see that as I select those, it changes down here what the icon is. That matters when we come over here to the next thing, which is groups. So I'm going to turn off the gear icon here, which is going to bring me back to the what I'm used to here, but just showing you a few other things. You can also change the routing. So you can see here that physical input 1 is assigned to channel 1. And so if I wanted this channel to be physical input 2, I could select here, but I'm not going to do that because that would stop me from being able to hear you, stop you from being able to hear me. I can also look at networked audio, USB audio, and SD card, or reset it. Then I've also got stereo linking options, and so I can say that I want names to be linked between stereo channels, as well as the preamp level or trim, the panning, the fader levels, and the compressor or limiter settings. So if I wanted different compressor limiter settings on my left channel and my right channel, I could simply deselect this stereo linking option, and then on this particular channel, if it was stereo linked, then I would be able to adjust those separately for left and right. Then I can come here and look at my input. And so let's say that on this channel, I wanted for the sound to be coming not from one of the analog inputs on the physical board. I wanted it to come over the network because I have plugged in an AVB jack to here and sent that over to a stage box. And so I want it to be network instead of analog. Or I've got a computer connected via USB, and I want the audio for this channel to be coming from the USB, not directly from the analog jack. So that means that I can plug into the analog jack, I can send the audio to the computer, modify it in a DAW, a digital audio workstation, and then select USB to bring that back from the DAW into the computer, into the rack mount mixer, to then be output, not as just have been affected by the FAT channel, but also having been affected by the DAW, the DAW, the digital audio workstation, which means that any effects or processing that I'm able to do on a digital audio workstation can also be applied to my live sound going out to my congregation or the audience or what have you. So in this way, I can control on this channel what my audio source is. And for the digital send options, I can send pre or post. And so if I am sending it to a computer, I can decide whether the audio that gets sent is before the fader on the mains or after the fader on the mains. And so if I select pre, then this fader is not going to have any effect on what gets sent to the computer. Whereas if I click post, this fader will have an effect on what I send to the computer. So again, I'm going to click on the gear icon to get back out of that and come back to the main view here. Over here, you will see that there's a gear icon for the mixer overall. And you'll see there's another tab here, which is my particular computer. And so my desktop computer, I can set device permissions and device mode and what have you here, or I can set device permissions here. So you can see here is my computer, and I'm pulling out my mobile phone, and I'm starting up the QMix app. And as soon as I do that and it connects, you are going to see my phone appear here, which is a Galaxy S9, an Android device. And currently I've got all AUXs selected for it, which means that I can pick whatever channel I want to be able to edit it. So if I want the 1 through 6 that are going up to our existing soundboard, I can pick whichever those I want on my device. But if I want to do my inner monitors, well, that's 7/8. If I want to do the drum monitors, that's 9/10. If I want to do the piano monitor, that's 11/12. And I can affect any of those, so I can override or change the settings for other people's stuff. But what if I've got somebody who's not very technically sophisticated, and I don't know whether or not they're going to be able to handle choosing the right auxiliary channel? I might want to say that they are limited to 7/8. And I might want to say that they can only use the main wheel. They can't change any of the mix settings they are limited in what they can do. That way, someone who is nervous about using one of these devices doesn't have to worry about whether they're accidentally going to modify someone else's headphone settings and accidentally crank up their sound because they're saying to themselves, well, why isn't this making a difference? Why can't I hear myself better? And so they crank it all the way up and somebody next to them has bleeding ears because their sound has been cranked way high. So those sort of settings can be set here, and as soon as I exit the device on my phone, that should go away, although I may need to actually exit from the program because it's still on. There we go. Now I have exited out of the program and my phone's not running it and my device is gone. And so you might have a few computers and a few phones on here, and for this PC I can again select whether I want front of house and have full access to everything, all auxes, or limited to just a single auxiliary channel. So if for this desktop I select aux 1, so I've changed this to aux 1. You'll notice that there was a bit of a jump cut there because I had to put in my password and I didn't want to show you what it was. But if I come back out to my mains here, you notice that on my mixes, all of these are grayed out because I have limited this computer to only have access to this one auxiliary channel. So the only changes that I can make with the faders, I don't have access to the input settings, I don't have access to any of this. All I can change is how much is going to this one mix. So I'm going to come back in here, and again I'm going to put in my password and not show you what that is. And we're back, and I'm going to change this back to front of house, and now I again have full control, and I can select whatever I want, the mains or any of the mixes. Over here is our network settings, which control how my network is set up. I can back up my mixer. I can control what plugins are installed in the mixer, install new ones, authorize them, or delete them. I've got user profiles so that different people can have customized control. And here I've got my digital patching that allows me to change where specific channels come from. So you see that channel 13 here is what was a USB input, which was not something that I had intended to do. And so if I select AVB, you'll see that that is now an AVB channel. If I select USB, it'll be a USB channel. I can bring it in from the SD card, but I want that to be an analog channel because I was not expecting for that to be anything else. So that is how one navigates through the mixer. There are a couple more things I want to show you here. First of all, if you want to get to mutes or the talk assignment, you can do that over here. And so by clicking here, I can set up mute groups, which I should probably think about which mute group I'm doing before I hit the button so that I don't suddenly have my mic cut out in the middle of what I'm trying to say. But I can set up mute groups that at a glance will mute different groups, and again click the mute group to turn that off, and so I can click this again to put that back there. Then you've got your project and scene settings, and so I can set up a number of scenes with specific settings and change all the settings on the board simply by selecting something and then hitting recall. Also down here, we have our presets. And so for any particular channel, and I can cycle through my channels here and go to different channels, I can recall fat channel settings for any of the channels that I want. So if I come here to pulpit, it's going to offer me anything related to vocals because I've defined that as a vocal. And so if I hit speech 1 recall, then it's going to change all of my fat channel settings to be appropriate to that. In the same way, if I come here to an acoustic guitar channel and hit the presets, it's going to offer me guitar presets. And so if I hit acoustic and recall, it's going to give me a factory defined set of options for different styles of guitar. So that is a basic overview of the Studio 4R and the accompanying software. I hope that's been useful to you. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be making more videos about more specific aspects of this software. Thanks so much.